I apologize for that. I had forgotten to put on my microphone. Sometimes it happens, so I apologize for that. Thank you so much. But a very good afternoon to you. This is Diaspora Dispatches, and I'm here to bring you the latest news from across the continent of Africa. My name is Miriam Mugoto. It is the 13th of June 2022, and it is a pleasure to have you on board. Good morning, good evening, depending on where you are tuned in and joining me. Today, we start with some news from the Pope, where now the Pope Francis has apologized to the Democratic Republic of Congo and South Sudan for postponing his July visit to the two countries indefinitely for health reasons. He had planned to visit the DRC cities of Kinshasa and Goma on 2nd to 5th July before traveling to South Sudanese capital Juba for a two-day trip. However, the Vatican announced the postponement on Friday due to the 85-year-old pontiff's knee problem. The Pope told thousands of people in St. Petersburg Square that with great regret due to problems with his leg, I have to postpone my visit to these countries. He expressed hope that he will schedule the visits as soon as possible. The Pope used a wheelchair for the first time at a public event in May due to reported pain in his right knee and has had to postpone a scheduled trip to Lebanon this month. And then we go to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where more than 30,000 people have fled their homes in eastern DRC, following heavy fighting between the army and M23 rebels in Ruchuru near the border with Uganda. About 5,000 fled to Uganda, while 25,000 others are camping in schools and churches in Rwangumba, Kibindi, and Kinoni areas of Ruchuru, the UN's Humanitarian Affairs Office has said. The army and the rebel accuse each other of instigating the fight and each claim to have won the Sunday clashes. In a statement, the army said it now controls the border town of Bunagana, but M23 spokesperson Willie Ngoma said they killed many government soldiers and others had left behind their weapons while fleeing to areas around Bunagana. The army accused Rwanda of helping the rebels attempt to take Bunagana. Rwandan officials have consistently denied allegations of supporting M23 rebels. On Saturday, the Rwandan and Congolese armies had accused each other of shelling across the border. And the UK's Court of Appeal is set to decide later whether to allow the first flight to depart to Rwanda on Tuesday with asylum seekers. Last week, campaigners and migrants failed to win an injunction against the government in the High Court in London. It is uncertain how many people will be on board. The British Home Secretary Priti Patel says the vast majority of those who take illegal routes, such as unauthorized boats and stowing away in lorries, will be considered for relocation to Rwanda. But the move has been criticized by charities and opposition parties. We head over to Tunisia, where the military court has ordered the detention of a journalist after he claimed the army had refused the president's order to close down the headquarters of the powerful UGTT labor union. Salah Atia likened the current situation in Tunisia to the final days of the former authoritarian leader Zain al-Abidine Ben Ali, who was ousted in an uprising just over a decade ago. Mr. Atia is accused of harming the army and inciting Tunisia to violence. Critics of President Kais Saied say he's seeking to consolidate one-man rule since seizing power last July. And then we head over to Zimbabwe. An opposition party says the remains of a missing supporter have been found in a well, ending a widely publicized search. More Blessing Ali was reported missing following an argument with a former boyfriend, Piers Jambo. And Mr. Jambo, who's been described by the opposition Citizens Coalition for Change as a ruling party supporter, is alleged to have dragged her from a bar in May. The ruling party ZANU-PF has denied involvement in the killing and asked the police to be allowed to do the investigations. Miss Ali's mutilated body was found dumped in a well south of capital Harare. Police have previously said they were treating the case as domestic rather than politically motivated. But an opposition spokesperson, Fadzai Mahere, said Mr. Jambo was linked to previous violent attacks against opposition supporters. She called for swift, impartial investigations. Guinea's opposition leader, Diallo, was expected to appear before the country's Economic and Financial Crimes Court today to respond to accusations of fraud and self-enrichment. The accusations stem from the liquidation of the state airline nearly 2 decades ago. At a time, Diallo served as Guinea's transport minister, a portfolio he held from 1996 to 2004. His accusers say Air Guinea was sold at a very low price and that Diallo made money from the sale of the company's assets. An official from Diallo's UFDG party said the former presidential candidate had not received any court summons. Diallo has been out of the country since March. Guinea's new army rulers have launched an anti-corruption campaign targeting past government officials and executives. Some have said the drive is a plot to stamp out opposition to the junta led by Mamadou Doumbouya. Diallo contested and lost to ousted President Alpha Conde in 2020 elections. And then we head over to Mali. The leader of Mali's military transitional government created on Friday night a body in a charge of writing a new constitution. Colonel Assimi Goita will be in charge of choosing the members of this committee, who will have to present to him a draft version of the text in 2 months. The team will include the president, 2 rapporteurs and experts. It will be able to consult all political parties and the civil society, including religious organizations and traditional authorities. This presidential decree has already been published in the official journal. This decision comes just days after the junta announced on June 6th it should stay in power for 2 additional years before organizing democratic elections in March 2024. The West African country is facing sanctions from its regional partners of the ECOWAS, and it did not meet the deadline for elections to be held by the end of February this year. Negotiations with the West African nations are still underway, but the ECOWAS said it regretted the 24-month timetable they had given Bamako 16 months maximum to transfer their power to a civilian entity in order to lift the sanctions. With this new decision, the ruling military wants to show it is trying to move fast, but it is yet to be seen if the drafting team will be able to meet the tight target of handing a copy in just 2 months. And then we head over to Nigeria, where gunmen have abducted at least 29 people in northwestern Nigerian state of Zamfara. Police have confirmed the victims were traveling back from a wedding ceremony when the armed men ambushed a convoy of their vehicles. The victims were mostly mobile phone dealers from a popular market in Gusau, the Zamfara state capital, who had attended the wedding of one of their colleagues in neighboring Sokoto state. One man who survived the attack told the BBC the gunmen had mounted 3 roadblocks on Saturday evening, trapping vehicles and opening fire on them. A number of travelers managed to escape on foot with gunshot wounds, abandoning their vehicles. A police spokesperson said security forces had launched a search for dozens of hostages. The Nigerian authorities are facing increasing criticism for failing to tackle the widespread insecurity, including frequent killings and kidnappings for ransom by armed gangs. In a speech to mark the 23rd anniversary of Nigeria's return to democracy on Sunday, President Muhammadu Buhari acknowledged the rise in violence by various armed groups across the country. He said his government was doing its best to address the problem. More than 3,500 people have been killed in the first 3 months of this year alone, and thousands have been kidnapped. And then we end our news from where we started. I think we go back to the Democratic Republic of Congo, and dozens of soldiers from the Democratic Republic of Congo have crossed into Uganda after the M23 rebels blocked the main road to Rushuru. Ugandan Army spokesperson Brigadier General Felix Kulaje told the BBC that the soldiers were being received at a Ugandan Army barracks at the border town of Bunagana. A source told the BBC that some of the Congolese soldiers had arrived in military vehicles while others crossed on foot. Reports indicate that the M23 rebels overran the Congolese side of the Bunagana on Monday morning. Pictures of overturned armored vehicles believed to belong to the Congolese army, the FARDC, have been seen, shared on social media. UN agencies say that more than 30,000 people in Rushuru territory of North Kivu province fled their homes over the weekend, and of course hundreds have been internally displaced while others have crossed the border to Uganda. And the Ugandan side of Bunagana border town is crowded with people who have fled their homes due to the fighting over the last couple of days. Some have wanted to return home on Monday morning, but even more people are now fleeing the fighting. Fighting between the government forces and the army has intensified intensified over the last couple of weeks after the Congolese government designated the M23 as a terrorist group and refused their calls for a bilateral ceasefire or peace negotiations. Congo accuses Rwanda of supporting the group, as I read there earlier, made up of mainly ethnic Congolese Tutsis, but the government in Kigali has continually denied these accusations. I think that is the latest on that story. That is the latest news from across the continent of Africa, by the way. So what we see happen here in the Democratic Republic of Congo, I think, is quite worrying. And I think after those talks started in Kenya between the government and these rebel forces that are present in the Democratic Republic of Congo, M23 was left out of those mediations. And I think it wants a seat at the table by all means necessary. So I think it is committed to really causing the mayhem and chaos that we're seeing. Because after that announcement that they have been designated as a terrorist group, while other rebel groups whose activities also are similar to those of M23 in terms of what they've been doing and the atrocities they've been committing, were allowed to the table to negotiate and to be part of this mediation process. So these attacks by M23 has intensified across that part of the Democratic Republic of Congo. So I don't know if it was a bad idea to leave them out. And of course, the country of Democratic Republic of Congo, they had their President Felix Tshisekedi had his good reasons why he felt, M23 will not be part of the table, will not be part of the negotiations because they have been designated as a terrorist group. Okay, so because DRC has accused Rwanda of supporting M23, which is mainly made up of ethnic Congolese Tutsi. And there's another also armed group, FDLR, that is also is mainly, I think, Hutus. And apparently the Democratic Republic of Congo has been accused of supporting this militia group to fight against that other one that Rwanda is being accused of supporting, the M23. So it's not getting any better. So should they be included on the mediation table to see if these attacks will intensify? Because look at this, over 30,000 people just over the weekend had to move in the Rushuru territory of North Kivu province. They fled their homes. Over 30,000 people. That is just in one weekend. And there are thousands among thousands of others, women and children and, men as well, who have now fled in Uganda. And so that's what I keep saying. Sometimes you could act as if you don't want to be involved with these conflicts that do take place in the different countries, especially across Africa. But at the end of the day, if your neighbor is restive, there's an ongoing active conflict in that country, to some degree you will have to shoulder the burden and the price tag of that conflict by receiving refugees from that place, by, and all these other things, because others also part of those militias could be coming to this, to Uganda even right now, and maybe start causing another insecurity in Uganda. So it's a lot going on. So I'm hoping that maybe there was a force that was supposed to be formed, the East African force, to go help the DRC in containing this. But it's difficult. That has not happened yet. And so I don't know when this is supposed to happen, but that has not happened yet. And so the killings continue, and the people continue being uprooted from their homes in North Kivu, in that part of our Democratic Republic of Congo. And just this morning, dozens of soldiers now. It's not just the people, but now it is soldiers from the Democratic Republic of Congo who now have crossed inside Uganda because their base have been attacked, where they had been stationed in trying to repel the M23. They were attacked and they had to run for safety in Uganda. These are the DRC, army. So can you imagine if the army has been attacked And what level of sophistication of weapons does the M23 have? And I think this is when we have to question who is supporting these people. And I think this is something that Dr. Matanga has kept asking. And maybe he said a country like Tanzania is saying the reason why it's very slow when it comes to sitting at the table and discussing the Democratic Republic of Congo is because there are some actors, especially in the East African community, who have been accused and who could be possibly aiding and supporting and equipping these militant groups, but still they want to sit at the table and try to discuss the issues to do with how to find solutions. I think more like what we see happen sometimes at the United Nations Security, when they meet and some of the actors in these conflicts that we see, especially like the one in Libya, you'll find that they're sitting, the United Nations Security Council, they're discussing and they're coming up with the drafted measures, and yet one of them, or a couple of them, especially in the permanent seats, they are the ones who are actively instigating these wars. So whatever is being discussed there is literally rubbish, because when it comes back, down to it, they are the same actors who are actively involved in fueling this conflict. So I think that is the same thing with the Democratic Republic of Congo, and I think this has to be interrogated carefully if at all a solution has to be gotten, and this peace has to be restored and security in the Democratic Republic of Congo. How much are the M23 armed? They ran over the Democratic Republic of Congo, soldiers, and the soldiers had to come take cover in Uganda. So you can imagine what the people there, the civilians, have been going through. And this is worrying. And I don't know why this is not being spoken about loud enough. I don't know why this has not attracted the United Nations Security Council as an urgent thing that needs to be done. I do understand there is an ongoing active conflict in Ukraine. The Russia aggression is ongoing. But this also matters. Can you imagine in one weekend, 30,000 people were driven out of their homes and others have been killed? This is no small thing. So we need to amplify this. This needs to come to the attention of African Union. I've tried looking for a statement that maybe they made over the weekend, today, something. I've not seen any, so this is worrying. This is worrying and this is urgent, and the fact that it's just being treated as another conflict that we're used to having in this continent, and nobody wants to sit down and actually find a solution. I don't know how far this mediation process in Nairobi has been ongoing, or if at all it's ongoing or it's stopped with these rebel forces, but I think somebody needs to reach out to the M23. If you're going to designate them as a terrorist group, then you have to make sure that you're up to the task of fighting this group with all seriousness, okay? Because somebody is equipping them. Somebody is making sure they have the best weapons across the region. And we have to find out who this person is. We have to find out who is equipping M23 that is now even running out and even chasing away the other soldiers from the Democratic Republic of Congo. So, of course, Ugandan army barracks, this is where some of the dozens of the soldiers from the Democratic Republic ran to in the border town of Bunagana. So this is another insecurity transferred, as I said, at Uganda, and there's no telling how far this will go. So this is an urgent appeal. This is something that should be discussed, and it's just a lot ongoing this afternoon. I think almost all stories I have has to do with insecurity. If it's not a dead body found of an opposition activist in Zimbabwe, then it's what else? Mali junta now wants suggestions of a new constitution. I don't know if they're serious about this, or this is just a cosmetic approach of things because of the sanctions that they're now facing from the ECOWAS and also other international communities. And I think they're starting to feel the pangs of these sanctions, and now they want to pretend as if they are doing something as far as transiting to a civilian rule is concerned. And Friday evening, at night, a body in charge of writing a new constitution was created by the military transitional government. So they're supposed to be writing a new constitution constitution. Remember when they came to power, the Mali junta, Colonel Assimi Goïta, he said, one of his key mandates will be, he overheld, the constitution, and he said he wants to relook. I think this is what he said. He wants to relook at the foundations of Mali. And so it appears the foundations of Mali was faulty. I don't know, that is after Mali got its independence. And maybe after that things were not very right. So he wanted to fix that. The military wanted to fix that. So I need first to understand what was wrong with this constitution, what was wrong with the foundation of Mali, and what are we fixing? Because that is a very opaque way of looking at things. That is not how constitutional reviews are done. You have to identify areas in that constitution that you feel are the people. Or maybe after forming this committee, this committee body that is in charge of writing the new constitution, and I'm hoping that people's participation will be key. Maybe they can come in and say, do we want to keep the new constitution? Because I think before you change a constitution, you have to go to a referendum, and you all have to agree that we want a new constitution. The people have to agree that indeed the constitution we are having is not serving us, and there has to be a modality, a structured way of finding and writing and changing the constitution, because I think that is very, very important. It is the most important document in a country. It is a contract between the government and its people. So it's not something to be treated very lightly. So as they form this new body to head on and in charge of writing of the new constitution, I wonder what issues that the army feels needs to be changed, and does the people of Mali do the people of Mali feel the same way, and do they feel there is a need for a new constitution, and this new constitution is going to be based on what? Yeah, I think these are very pertinent questions, because you can't just wake up one morning and decide, okay, fine, this constitution, we're going to overhaul it, we don't want it, and so we're going to get a new one. The foundations of this country is faulty. So now I don't know, they're going to rebuild another one, or they're going to find which other foundation and where. That is not very clear. When Omar al-Bashir was removed from power in 2019, also the constitution was suspended. But the reason why it was suspended, and the reason why I don't know if they've been working on a new constitution, but they wanted to change it, especially the civilian side was pushing for a change of this constitution, because the constitution of Sudan then was largely based on Sharia laws, and the civilian side wanted a more liberal constitution. So you see, there was a basis for a need to change that, and it appeared that a large majority of the population and civilians in Sudan agreed that indeed they did not want a very constitution largely based on religion, as far as that is, there's an aspect of that, but they needed also to enjoy other freedoms and rights that might be prohibited if they had to go that route like they used to have it. So there was a basis of a need to change the constitution in Sudan. It was suspended. I don't know if they're working on it. Well, things have not been working quite well in Sudan. So that is another quagmire going on in there. But this Mali one, I'm trying to understand. So of course they were supposed to be having, the agreement was for them to have organized an election to enable a return to civilian rule by February this year. Of course, that came and passed. They had been allowed a 16 months maximum transfer to power since the day they ousted the president. But that came and passed. And now they said, I think late last month, no, not late last month, earlier this month, they said that they need another 24 months. They need 2 years, and then after that, they will transit and they will allow for a civilian transition. I think the army has tasted power, and I think the army has decided they are better off leading that country, and I don't see them giving away that power very soon. The same way I don't see Sudan transiting into civilian rule very soon. I think the army will continue having a very strong hold on the happenings of Sudan and the leadership and governance structures in Sudan. And it is the same thing I see happening in Mali and maybe in Guinea and perhaps also in Burkina Faso, where we've seen these coups happen. So I think it's just a bad thing. especially in countries where they've made quite a good stride as far as democracy is concerned, and now you have to go back to army rule. And so once the army has tasted power and the trappings thereof, it seems to become very difficult for them to hand over and for them to trust that responsibility, especially with the civilians. So another day, another news, another abduction in Nigeria, and this about 29 people in northwestern Nigeria state of Zamfara, were abducted. They were coming from a wedding. Like, you can't even attend a wedding in peace. I'm surprised they were not even abducted during the wedding. They're abducted, on their way from having attended a wedding in northwestern Nigerian state of Zamfara. And the police have confirmed the victims are traveling back home from a wedding ceremony when armed men ambushed a convoy of their vehicles. And of course, the victims were mostly mobile phone dealers from a popular market in Gusau, that happens to be the state capital of Zamfara, and who had attended the wedding of one of their colleagues in neighboring Sokoto state. Okay, so that's sad. I guess that is news like this is it's not news anymore. I think this is somehow what we expect from Nigeria, which I think is very sad. So I just hope that these people are safe. And of course, yesterday, Nigeria marked 23 years return to democracy. Remember, Nigeria was under military rule for quite a while, for quite some time, until it returned to democratic space. Elections in 23 years ago. So yesterday, President Buhari led the country in celebrating that and commemorating that. And President Buhari acknowledged the rise in violence by various armed groups across the country. He said his government was doing its best to address the country. No, it does not. The government of Nigeria is not doing, I can't even say it's not doing enough. I wonder if it's doing anything at all. And all these meetings that President Buhari has been having with the security chiefs in Nigeria, I wonder what they talk about, and I wonder what kind of resolutions they make in these meetings, and I wonder why it does not translate into action and a difference as far as the security of Nigeria is concerned. So if you're saying the government was doing the best it can to address the problem, I don't know. President Buhari, your government has failed your people as far as protecting their lives and their property is concerned. That you have failed to do, sir. And I think the best thing for you to do is say, you know what, I know, and yes, the issue of insecurity is a thing in Nigeria, and I, as your president, have failed you miserably, and so I can only hope the incoming government can do better than me. I think that will be a befitting speech, President Buhari, because you have failed your people as far as providing and for them security is concerned, because you are the chief, you're the head of security in that country. As a president, it is your prerogative, your number one duty, to ensure your people that you lead are safe, and that is not the case. So a lot of such news from across the continent, but I think I'll stop for today, and then I'll see you here tomorrow, God willing. So thank you so much for your time and for watching. This has been Diaspora Dispatches. My name is Miriam Ogutu. Bye-bye for now.